They were giants feared by all who knew of them. Being so powerful, their very existence threatened the fate of the world. The Book of Enoch warns us about the Nephilim, a race of hybrid giants born from the union of fallen angels and human women. Their rebellion against God brought an age of chaos, destruction, and corruption that ended in the Great Flood. But what if they're coming back? Look around. War, devastation, and a world teetering on the edge of collapse. What if the chaos we see today is not just political upheaval, but the ancient prophecy unfolding right in front of us? Could the Nephilim be returning in our time? In this video, we'll dive deep into ancient prophecies and the chilling possibility that what was once thought to be a myth could be reappearing, signaling the end of days. Stay with me, because what we're about to uncover could change everything you thought you knew about the end times. The Nephilim are a mysterious and terrifying part of ancient biblical history. According to the Book of Enoch and other ancient texts, these beings were the offspring of fallen angels, referred to as the Watchers and human women. Their existence was not just an accident, it was a violation of divine order. The Watchers, sent to observe and protect humanity, instead defied God's command by descending to earth and taking mortal women as wives. From these unions, the Nephilim were born. These giants weren't just physically imposing, they were a symbol of corruption. The Nephilim were described as beings of immense size and power, capable of dominating the earth. Their presence brought with it unimaginable violence, and their existence contributed to the complete moral and spiritual decay of humanity. Their very presence distorted the balance between heaven and earth, turning the world into a breeding ground for sin and evil. The Book of Enoch paints a vivid picture of the chaos they unleashed. These giants consumed everything in their path, including human life. They became the embodiment of unchecked greed, violence, and destruction. The earth groaned under their weight as they ravaged the land, leading God to intervene in the most dramatic way possible: the Great Flood. This flood wasn't just a reset for humanity, but an act of divine judgment against the Nephilim and the fallen angels who fathered them. But their story doesn't end with the flood. Even after their destruction, their legacy continued to haunt ancient cultures and biblical prophecies. Some believe that traces of their bloodlines survived, carried forward by later generations, and that their influence might still be felt today. Their rebellion against God serves as a warning of what happens when divine order is disrupted. And many wonder, could these ancient beings return in some form, bringing with them the same chaos and destruction? And that's the chilling question we face. If the Nephilim were able to distort the world once, what might their return mean for us now? Are we truly prepared for the consequences if they do reappear, just as the ancient prophecies warn? The Book of Enoch describes a time when the earth was filled with violence, corruption, and destruction due to the presence of the Nephilim. These giants, born from the union of fallen angels and humans, distorted the natural order and brought chaos to the world. Their reign of terror was so overwhelming that God sent the Great Flood to cleanse the earth of their influence. Now, when we look at the modern world, particularly the escalating conflicts in Israel, it's hard not to draw parallels with the chaos described in the ancient texts. The tension between Israel and groups like Hamas and Hezbollah has reached unprecedented levels in recent times, with ongoing wars, bombings, and civilian casualties turning the region into a battleground. But what if this isn't just about politics and territorial disputes? Could the violence we're seeing today be a reflection of the ancient spiritual battle described in the Book of Enoch? In the ancient narrative, the Nephilim's presence was a direct result of the fallen angels' defiance of divine law. Today, the ongoing strife in Israel can be seen as a continuation of the same struggle between order and chaos, between divine will and rebellion. Just as the Nephilim corrupted humanity and led to widespread destruction, the modern-day conflicts are tearing apart the region, fueling global instability. There are also deeper, more symbolic connections. The Nephilim were agents of corruption, much like how today's wars and conflicts spread division, hatred, and devastation. Both in ancient times and today, the innocent suffer the most. Just as the Nephilim preyed on human lives, modern warfare destroys the lives of civilians caught in the crossfire. The destruction of cities, the displacement of families, and the seemingly endless cycle of violence mirror the chaos unleashed by the Nephilim in the Book of Enoch. Moreover, in both scenarios, there's a sense of something larger at play, an undercurrent of spiritual warfare. Just as the Nephilim represented a spiritual rebellion against divine authority, today's conflicts, particularly in a region as significant as Israel, can be viewed as part of a larger cosmic battle. Could the same forces of corruption that once fueled the rebellion of the fallen angels be influencing the world today? These questions lead us to wonder if the events unfolding in Israel are not just isolated incidents of human conflict, but part of a broader, apocalyptic pattern that was foretold long ago. And if the Nephilim really are returning, what will that mean for humanity in the days to come? The idea that the Nephilim could be returning isn't just a distant ancient myth. It's a theory that some believe could be tied to the very events we're witnessing today. As we see the world spiraling into deeper chaos, with wars, natural disasters, and moral decay, we are faced with the question, could the Nephilim be coming back? In the Book of Enoch, the Nephilim were not merely physical beings. They were a manifestation of corruption, born from the rebellion of fallen angels against God. Their influence spread violence and sin across the earth, ultimately leading to divine judgment through the Great Flood. But what if their story didn't end there? Some believe that the bloodline of the Nephilim may have survived, even after the flood, passed down through generations. Certain biblical passages suggest that they continued to exist in some form, such as in the time of David and Goliath. But beyond their physical presence, it's the spiritual corruption they represent that's the most concerning. Could their return signify not just the physical reappearance of these beings, but a spiritual decay that mirrors the moral collapse we see in today's society? The signs of their return might not be giants walking the earth again, but rather the rise of violence, immorality, and global unrest. When we examine the current state of the world, conflicts in Israel, growing tensions between nations, environmental disasters, it starts to resemble the kind of chaos the Nephilim thrived in. Could this be the precursor to their reappearance? Moreover, many biblical scholars and theologians suggest that the return of the Nephilim would coincide with the end times, a period of great tribulation and upheaval. Some even argue that their influence could manifest in more subtle ways, through the corruption of institutions, the breakdown of moral values, and the escalation of conflict and disaster. As we look at the world today, the parallels are difficult to ignore. From widespread conflict to moral decay, we are living in times that feel increasingly apocalyptic. If the Nephilim were a warning of what happens when divine order is upended, then their return could be a harbinger of the ultimate spiritual battle to come. But what if the signs are already here? What if the return of the Nephilim isn't something far off in the future, but a reality we are beginning to experience now? The question remains, are we ready for what might come next?
As we stand on the brink of potentially seeing ancient prophecies unfold, one thing becomes clear: we cannot simply be spectators. The Book of Enoch serves as more than a historical account of chaos and destruction. It is a warning, a call to action for those who are paying attention. If the Nephilim's return is truly on the horizon, now is the time to reflect and prepare spiritually for what may come. First and foremost, we must return to God. The Nephilim, as described in ancient texts, represent rebellion against divine order. Their influence led to a world consumed by violence, greed, and destruction. The antidote to this is realigning ourselves with the principles of faith, righteousness, and spiritual discipline. By turning back to God, we can find protection and guidance in these uncertain times. This isn't just about fear, it's about renewal. We need to seek forgiveness, repent, and strengthen our relationship with the Creator. Next, we must live by the teachings of love, compassion, and forgiveness. The Nephilim's era was marked by selfishness and moral decay. To prepare ourselves, we must embody the values that contrast with their legacy: kindness, justice, and humility. In times of chaos, we are called to rise above, not fall into the same cycles of corruption. Prayer and meditation become even more crucial in these moments. They are not only ways to seek inner peace, but also powerful tools to connect with divine wisdom. Prayer can serve as a shield, offering clarity and strength as the world around us becomes increasingly chaotic. It's also a way to intercede, not just for ourselves, but for others, those suffering in conflict zones, the oppressed, and those who have strayed from the path of faith. Finally, it is essential to educate ourselves about these ancient prophecies. Now is the time to dive deeper into Scripture, to understand the signs of the end times, and to discern truth from deception. The more we understand the spiritual battle at play, the better prepared we will be. Knowledge empowers us to not only recognize the signs, but to act in ways that align with God's will. As we reflect on these possibilities, let us ask ourselves, are we prepared? Not just for the possibility of Nephilim's return, but for the spiritual challenges that may come. The world is changing rapidly, and we must be spiritually grounded to navigate what lies ahead. Now is the time to take action, to strengthen our faith, to prepare our hearts, and to stand firm in the face of whatever comes next. As we come to the end of this journey through the prophecies of the Book of Enoch and the possibility of the Nephilim's return, we are left with more than just questions. We are reminded of the importance of being spiritually prepared in times of uncertainty and upheaval. The signs, the warnings, and the ancient texts are not just stories of the past. They are calls for reflection, for action, and for faith. Whether or not the Nephilim are returning, the deeper message is clear. We must align ourselves with God, strengthen our faith, and live with love and compassion in the face of chaos. Now more than ever, it's essential to stand firm in what we believe, to prepare our hearts, and to be ready for whatever may come. May this video inspire you to seek wisdom, to stay vigilant, and to find peace in knowing that even in the darkest of times, we are never alone. We are guided, protected, and held by a greater power. And as you reflect on these mysteries, may the Lord bless you and keep you safe in His care. May God bless you all,